Welcome, Alex, and to those of you joining us, I'm excited to hear more about 40 forms of intimacy. I know we get caught up in there's one form of intimacy and it's sex. So I love how you're unpacking your book and different concepts for us. So I'm going to mute and let you take it away.
Great. Well, yeah, thank you. I'm so glad that you invited me here, and I love sharing on this topic. So I'm excited and would love to hear any questions that people have. So I'll talk a little bit about emotional intimacy and safety intimacy. Those were two of the 40 in the book 40 Forms of Intimacy. And actually today, I mentioned last time I was going to talk a lot about emotional safety, because that is critical. It's foundational for any relationship, for anyone to go deep in a relationship, and especially repairing betrayal, especially connecting in a relationship with our most important people. We need to feel a sense of safety. So I'll talk a little bit about some of these concepts in my new book. It's actually coming out in a few days, called Emotional Safety. So I'm excited about that. And you can actually go to Amazon right now and pre-order. It's 99 cents for the pre-order. It's only for, I think, another week for the Kindle version. But this book was written in response to how I really believe emotional safety is important for everybody to fully understand. So you might hear this topic with your therapist. Sometimes as therapists, we talk about, we might know a lot about emotional safety, but really wanted everybody to understand, what does this look like? How do I get this thing? How do I keep it? And how do I let someone know when I need it? When I start to see or feel that sense of safety slip away, I need to make some practical requests to be able to get that back. So I think that it's foundational for us to be able to talk to anyone to any degree of depth. We need to feel safe. We can't really show who we are and be authentic and true to ourselves if we don't feel safe to share with others. So especially in our most important relationships, this is it's a core need to feel safety. So with our partner, our spouse, our kids, our friends, any new people that we want to build a relationship with, we only share to the degree we feel safe. So I want people to know in this book that why you might struggle in relationships when it's not really your fault, especially if we've experienced some type of relational trauma or childhood or adulthood relationship betrayal. Our mind can be pretty active. It's supposed to be. It's staying vigilant, hyper vigilant, to protect us. And we know that we feel exhausted when that happens and we can't turn it off, but it's there for our safety. But sometimes we just wonder what we should say with certain people or what we shouldn't. You probably know that. You're thinking about some people that are easy to talk to, people that get you, that feel like they're on your team, and it's just easy to connect with them. You feel comfortable. And then there are other people where you struggle or you pause, you hesitate. It could be extended family, it could be certain people that have let you down, but you might say, like, I'm not going to share this with that person. Right? Maybe they're going to gossip about it. They're going to use it against you. So they definitely aren't being safe in that moment. And I'll talk a little bit later about the difference between unsafe people and unsafe behaviors, because that's an important distinction. A lot of times we can be with a safe person, someone who's there, that protects us, that has our back, but they might engage in or do certain behaviors or say certain things that have us feeling unsafe. So it doesn't mean we have to classify them as, you're an unsafe person, get away, I'm not going to share anything with you, you're not going to change. It's important to look at and make those very specific requests for change so they can be safe for you in the way you need them to and at the times you need them to. So I, again, wrote this book. I wanted people to know they're not alone in that. I've heard many therapists have already previewed it and have given me good feedback about how this is good for someone that's been through any kind of trauma, particularly complex trauma. But like if you've experienced relational trauma, that is something that you'll feel understood. So I wanted people, especially after betrayal and infidelity, we know we need to feel emotionally safe. So again, couples can't connect, they can't feel heard, they can't feel validated truly all those things and heal the betrayal unless they feel safe with that person. I think that's a primary need. So that's where we know, as a betrayed partner, you're setting boundaries, you're sharing needs. And again, it all comes back to feeling safe. And until we're settled, and our mind and our body and our emotions, even our heartbeat won't be able to slow down if we don't feel safe in that way. The brain doesn't really distinguish between what is physical fear and emotional fear. It just knows it's fear, and it's going to protect you, and it's going to tell you to stop sharing with people. So if the addict or the person who committed the infidelity could focus on everything connected to helping their partner heal by feeling emotionally safe, I really believe this expedites the healing process in betrayal. I've seen it in my practice. I mostly have male clients who have betrayed female partners. So I'll use the she and the he in this, and when he steps up to truly listen and genuinely validates his partner for the pain that he caused, that really changes everything. Until the betrayed partner genuinely feels that he's owning up to his part and he's listening, validating her feelings. He doesn't have to agree with them. Validation isn't a stamp of approval. And I agree with everything you just said. Validation means I'm hearing you, I'm listening to you, and I'll be present with you. And your feelings make sense for you. And I want to believe you, even if I don't fully have that experience when those things happen to me. So that they get unstuck. Couples get unstuck when that validation happens. I often say validation is the bridge between two people, and you're going to have that great distance, that gap, until you walk over that bridge and you start to truly listen to what the other person is saying, listen to the pain, and validate, make those validation statements, which can be very brief. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn out, perfect statement that answers all the questions. And what I think a lot of men try to do, bring all these perfect solutions. It's just, I hear you. I hear what you have to say, and that makes sense. Some variation of that often really can help. So often tell men or the person who has betrayed that they hold the key to their partner's healing. And that is the first step, that validation, that listening, meeting them where they are in their pain is the first step, again, toward them feeling understood and believing that, okay, you're not going to do this to me again. They need that reassurance. And until you get it, they're just left wondering, how can I believe you? How do I know that you're not going to do this again? So we can give them things to say. They can read books, listen to podcasts, all that, and have information. So they do need to absorb that, but they need to make it theirs. And they need to genuinely, sincerely show up with an adequate apology. And it's not, of course, not just a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process. And it's not just saying, I'm sorry. Sometimes we have to toss out those 3 words. They do more harm, they're overused, and they don't mean anything anymore. So maybe even just toss out, I'm sorry, altogether. And instead, you're really apologizing for the exact things that you've done and the exact harm that the partner has communicated that you've caused, but then maybe you're anticipating or kind of speculating some of these things too. Like, you might have felt this, or you might have felt that. And you might be wrong when you say that, but at least you're trying to get in there and go for that feeling and really try to validate the pain. So I really can believe the person who betrayed has a direct impact on the partner feeling emotionally safe. And when a partner who's been betrayed, again, this is betrayal trauma, right? It's a trauma. We can't just think our way out of trauma. It just doesn't go away someday. It gets a lot better when we do the work and we heal through the relational pain. What I'm just talking about that the betrayer can do. But when a partner feels safe, they can access the other skills that they know, maybe some of those that they're learning in their betrayal trauma recovery experiences. So like the mindfulness-based practices, EMDR, they're able to show up and do all these other things when they feel soothed. They feel some relief of the pain. They're starting to believe and trust, even if it's 1% more, they're starting to believe, okay, I don't really think he's going to do this again. I'm not sure. I'm not letting him off the hook. And I really can't fully, truly believe him yet, but what he's doing, I see it's different. He's changed in some ways, but a lot of times we won't tell, right? You're not going to tell him, because if I tell him he's doing good, he's going to stop doing good. So a lot of times we do have to give some feedback, I believe, and let that person know. Sometimes the addict is desperate, is starved for some kind of feedback, because I think a lot of at least the guys that I work with they're really trying to get it right. They're learning, a lot about their family of origin. Why did they do this? They're learning about themselves. They're learning in a rapid pace, like relationship, communication skills. There's a lot going on. So when they hear some of this feedback, hey, what you did just right there, that helped me feel safe. That's what I need from you. So it's, positive reinforcement doesn't only work with children, right? It works with spouses. So we need to hear when we're getting it right, specifically, so we will keep doing that. So don't be afraid to reinforce if you can, if the person who betrayed you is doing something different and is getting it right. So but I think, again, emotional safety, when the other person gets it, the person who betrayed you gets it, instead of this long list of to-dos, but they focus on emotional safety, they're going to begin to help you heal. Most of the time they're going to come up short with this task list, right? They're going to be probably 50 things they feel they have to do, that they're maybe hearing from their therapist, they're hearing from you, they're hearing from other people, and that's a long list. And a lot of those things, there's sometimes a knowledge gap in there, so they're going to feel like they're coming up short, and they're like, I'm not going to get it right anyway. So sometimes they stop trying. So if they focus on emotional safety, of course they need to do a lot of those other things that you need, but when they're sensitive to you, and they are meeting those non-negotiable needs, those bottom line behaviors, are doing, they keep their eyes focused on that. That's very important. But again, all that, I believe, points back to safety. So I'm going to help you understand a little bit about emotional safety by sharing this definition. It's about 5 sentences, so stay with me. So I'm going to read it to you. I feel emotionally safe when I can easily overcome my calculated emotional risk and share deeper thoughts, feelings, and needs without hesitation. I can share with a specific person because fear of rejection, criticism, and ridicule are mostly absent or non-existent. I don't feel minimized, unheard, unimportant, unseen, abandoned, or neglected because I shared. Overall, I feel free to be myself. And after I share, I'm completely confident that I'll be okay. And this person will still be there for me because of his or her response and loving presence that assures me that I will feel seen, cared for, and valued. So there's a lot there. I don't think that's unattainable. I think if we slow down and look at each piece of what I just shared, we can all do this. And of course, we're human. We're going to see our sense of emotional safety slip away at times, and we will feel that it's threatened at times. And we're going to let somebody know if they've threatened that, because we're going to feel it. But mostly what I put in the emotional safety book were specific questions we can ask. So when we begin to feel unsafe with someone, we can start to feel safe with them again, these specific things. So we can say something like, I've tried to share with you on a deeper level, but I feel dismissed and interrupted by you at times. So I want to be able to finish sharing my thoughts and feelings. Can we please sit down for 5 minutes so I can share with you? And I would also like to listen to what's on your mind. So it can be very simple, but it's a specific request, and you're sharing a feeling in there, right? I feel dismissed, I feel interrupted. And when we feel that, we feel invalidated, like we don't matter. It sparks up all these other powerful negative beliefs that maybe have been with us for a long time. So when we can make a request and tell a partner how they're impacting us, I think we can make change. And this goes for both sides of the relationship. Again, everybody, even if they haven't been in a relationship where there's been betrayal. I really believe we can make those very specific, assertive requests. Again, this is an assertive request for change to meet a need. It's not a demand. It's not an ultimatum, and it starts to help us remember that we preserve our value, that we're worthy enough to share how we're feeling and what someone's doing and how it's impacting us, and that we can speak up, we can assert ourselves. So hopefully the other person will hear that and will meet that need, but we might have to say that several times. And it's okay to stay on that until that need gets met, because otherwise, before we move on to the next one, because there are probably going to be several requests that we need to make in order for us to feel safe. So I think we all need to monitor our individual sense of safety. And that's where we really feel like we're advocating for ourselves. We believe we're worthy of that we matter. And we can't really depend on someone else, especially someone who's betrayed us, for our worth, because a lot of times we've heard from that person everything but we are worthy, right? We've heard how horrible we are, or if they've been gaslighting or blaming us, we have been beat down and have believed some of that. So we have to monitor our own sense of safety, talk with some other trusted people, our friends, our therapists, other people that know us and can see our specific value, and they can speak to us. We're going to listen to those voices, and we need to turn the volume up on those voices, because those people know us, they care for us, and they want what's best for us. So I had some questions we can ask, to assess if we're being safe for others, because we also need to be safe for others. If someone pushes our buttons, really harms us, it's difficult for a lot of us to be calm, to be steady, to just retain our normal sense of peace, because someone threw us off, right, by what they said. So are we being safe? Toward the end of the book, I put that in there, like what we can ask ourselves: are we easy to talk to? Are we approachable? And I like to use the word approachability to help understand emotional safety. And sometimes we're unapproachable. If we're stressed, if we look mad, if we're tired, like, people aren't going to probably come to us in those moments and share something deep with us. They're not going to get the response that they need in that moment. But if we're approachable in general, can people share things with us? Right? Hopefully your therapist is approachable. It's probably counseling 101. I don't remember them teaching it that way, but they probably made sure, hey, you better be an approachable person, otherwise you're not going to go to the next semester or whatever. So we have to be approachable, or people aren't going to share. They certainly aren't going to open up. So think about approachability in the way of emotional safety, right? So do you grant safety to others? And sometimes it's hard if you're a betrayed partner and you're down and they're triggering you in some way. It is really hard to look past the pain in that moment and look past the negative things that are happening and all of a sudden try to see some positive that they're doing. That's not what I'm asking. That's really hard. But when we are an emotionally safe person for others, we are really trying to be understanding. We're trying to be present for them. That's a huge part of being emotionally safe, is being present. But we can give them grace. We can try to understand them. We can be patient. We can be kind. We don't have to always take the bait. We don't always have to start the fight. We can, or continue it. We can pause. We can slow down. And I really believe when we manage that, we monitor that, we are valuing ourselves, right? We're not getting into that because it's exhausting. And we know that if we're healing from betrayal, it is emotionally and physically and mentally exhausting. And even I think as the person who betrayed, they're in that too. If they're allowing themselves to feel the feelings, they're going to feel exhausted as well, along with hopeless and maybe shame and other things. So those are really delicate moments for couples to navigate. So I think when we come to those moments, we can remind ourselves we don't have to solve every agreement. Not every disagreement will be able to be solved, but we don't have to have agreement with every issue. And it doesn't have to be something we discuss at this moment, right? We can come back to that. Anytime that we're triggered, especially if our sense of emotional safety is threatened, we need a break. Right? We need to come back because it's not going to go well. Right? We're not going to be able to get that response we need. So I think the goal for us to be emotionally safe is that we can hear people say to us things like, "It's easy to talk to you." Right? If someone has said that to you, that's great, right? That means you're an emotionally safe person. I can tell you anything. If you had a friend tell you that, and sometimes this circle is very small, but if someone has told you that, I just really feel like I can tell you anything. That feels amazing. Like, whoa, I must have done something here where this person feels safe enough to tell me some of these very deep, vulnerable things. And as a therapist, a lot of times people will say to the therapist, like, I've never told anybody this before. And then they go on to share this very sacred information, usually connected to trauma or shame. So if people are saying that to you, that's a great thing. So I think that's part of the goal is we want people to be able to feel relaxed around us. And if it can't be with your partner right now on either side of this, because of the pain, if it's just so unbearable right now, maybe you start that with somebody else. Can you practice being that emotionally safe person for somebody else? And maybe it's your child. That'd be great, right? I think a lot of our healthy society starts in the four walls of our home. So if we are treating our spouse like that, great. If you can't right now, I get it. It's hard to get there when you need that person to also validate and soothe your pain. But yeah, if someone says things like, "You just always understand me, you seem to get me," again, that's good. You're doing a great job. So that's, I think, what we want to shoot for in that. So emotional safety is sometimes hard to understand because it seems intangible. We think about it. We know, just like emotional intimacy, we how do we know that? Right? We know, like we've talked about before on this, we know what sexual intimacy feels like. It could be tangible. We might not feel emotional intimacy during sexual intimacy, but emotional safety too, it can seem like it's intangible. So I think it's observable, like I was saying, like how somebody talks to us, but also how somebody looks at us. If they're looking at us with a glance of appreciation, something that says they're proud of us, just that kind smile and that gaze, or something that they believe in us, something that some way they're looking at us that shows that they accept us. That, I believe, is having us feel emotionally safe with that person. And it's also audible emotional safety. You hear that again through the affirming, the encouraging words from people. If someone says something directly about your strengths or your talents, not just how you look but just like, wow, your heart, your passion, your gifts as a person, things that are unique about you, they just sit there and call that out. That just pauses time. When I've had that happen a few times, and someone will just say, "You know what, I'd like to share something with you," and they share this. It could be a sentence, but if they admire something or they just call out one of your strengths and they're valuing that, and it just seems like time stops and they're like, wow. So if we could do that for other people at times, again, we might need to practice with other people. I'm not at all, if you're right in the middle of betrayal, trauma, repair, telling you just go in and call out your partner's strengths on both sides. There's a time for that where it becomes easier and it feels less vulnerable. But I think this is where we want to get to, where we can look at that. A lot of us didn't have models for healthy relationships. How do we talk to each other? How do we manage a trigger? What do we do when someone mistreats us? So we can learn this. We're the ones fully responsible for what we do, and we can do things differently, even in the midst of pain and trauma and betrayal. We can start to learn and do things differently. So I want to talk about why emotional safety is important. Again, I think we feel loved and cared for and valued when we feel emotionally safe, and we can calm ourselves, we can be ourselves. We don't always know when we feel emotionally safe, Sometimes we know more when we feel emotionally unsafe, and our body lets us know. So hopefully, if you've learned about or working on some of the mindfulness and just the impact of your body with trauma, and how on both sides, if as an addict or a betrayed partner, there's a lot going on. Our body is alerting us when we feel anxiety or fear. So when we pay attention to that tension, sometimes that tells us exactly what we're feeling emotionally. Like, I felt that empty feeling in my stomach. Okay, well, that probably could feel like inadequacy. It could feel like rejection. So we start to put some emotional language to the physical feeling. So if we pay attention to that, we can be protected. So when we feel unsafe, again, our body's going to let us know. Our mind, our body, our spirit, our intuition all works together to help us stay protected. And we know that for a betrayed partner, our intuition is shattered. Right? We don't trust ourselves for a time. So we want to rebuild that, but we have to listen to what those things are saying to us, that internal system, how it's trying to protect us. So it's telling us to move away, protect yourself, or move towards somebody and assert yourself, defend yourself. So I always think it's important too to think of, there's a difference between protecting and defending. I talk about this in the book as well, that like sometimes we're very defensive. So if the person who committed the infidelity can slow down and ask himself or herself, I wonder, is my partner really afraid right now? I wonder if she's feeling unsafe, instead of, she looks so angry and she's disappointed in me, so I'm going to run the other way. So just pausing, is she being protective right now over her heart that I hurt? Or is she being defensive and just really just trying to, push me out of the room? So if we're engaging in avoidant behaviors, as the addict or the betraying person, that does more harm, right? And that couples can stay stuck in that cycle for years. So, but I get it. It's hard. It's hard to run toward the flames, so to speak. Like if a betraying partner, the addict, is seeing the anger, is feeling the shame, is just wanting to get out of there, one of the hardest things to do is run toward that, especially if they don't feel equipped and they don't have the right gear, right? The right gear is the communication, the validation, the empathy, all those other relational skills. It's hard to go toward that because we might not say anything. We might be actually in a paralyzed state, and we might say the wrong thing. It's probably going to happen a lot. We're not going to get it right. Or we might say a good thing we learned from a book, or a webinar or something, but we say it in the right moment, or she needed to hear something else, and we feel, again, we failed. So we have to be aware of that. But I really think, so instead of avoidance, is presence that begins to heal. When we stay present, they know we're there. They know we're not giving up. They know that we can support them, that we feel safe, right? Where we're saying, and we can still say, it's not okay. Say, it's not okay what you just did, or I need you to listen to me. We might have to tell them, stop ignoring me. It hurts, but we can assert ourselves in that moment in a different way, and maybe we could start to change that cycle together. But silence alone is harmful. Like if we're betraying or partner or addict and we're just ignoring, we're processing sometimes and need more time. But if we're not saying anything, that silence can be the loudest thing. It can be harmful. So it feels like neglect, and neglect is a form of abuse. So when someone stays disengaged, they stay there, and sometimes for days they don't come back to it. That's creating more harm, right? It's critical that we stay, even if we say, I don't know what to say right now, but I hear you, I'm present, and I'm going to stay here, and we can count on that. That can change a lot. So yeah, a couple more things. I think thinking about protecting ourselves, honoring ourselves while having and enforcing boundaries. I call this, in the book, there's a chapter called The Excruciating Gap. It's about calculating our vulnerability, calculating the risk. When can I share things with certain people? I want to connect with people, but I need to protect myself, especially again, if we've experienced some kind of trauma, especially complex trauma from our childhood, from other relationships. That's something it is hard to navigate because we don't want to be alone. We want to be with the right people. We want, what we really crave is safety, with the person we chose, the person that we're living with, the person maybe we married, but we have to honor ourselves. And that's part of the subtitle of the book, is honoring ourselves while creating trust and presence. And we create trust, we don't just restore it. I don't often like the words restore or rebuild. A lot of couples don't want sometimes anything what the rest of their marriage look like for 30, 40 years. Like, we want something brand new. So we want to create a new trust, one that is dripping with emotional safety, one that is not going to contain any kind of gaslighting, any blaming, any dismissing, invalidating. It's going to include listening, validating. It's going to include, you're seeing me, you're hearing me, you're staying with me, the presence rather than avoidance. Your heart, everything that you're doing is so different. So it's just crafting something brand new while you're still, enforcing those much needed boundaries because of past behavior. So I think it's important to think of how we value ourselves. So I'll finish with that. We, of course, first, safety is connected to trust and forgiveness. I have a few chapters on that. One's called Revisiting Risk, Harm Doesn't RSVP, and again, creating a new trust. So emotional safety needs to happen for a truly sincere forgiveness interaction to happen. We can't approach forgiveness without safety. But we think of, again, at the end here is what do we do to honor ourselves? We have to really love and care for ourselves well. We can't function at optimum levels for ourselves in our relationships when we're struggling as an individual, or we're constantly being threatened or feel unsafe from our partner. So it doesn't mean we have to have it all together, before we get into a relationship or see some sense of success in relationships. And I define success in relationship as whenever we can experience a sense of connection. It's not we have to be perfect, have it all together. We have to look like that other couple. It's, do we feel connected? Do we feel safe? And do we feel that we have each other's backs? That's really what we want. So, and I don't think we don't just arrive. We don't ever just fully figure it out. It's, especially with two different people, we're constantly learning and growing, hopefully in the same direction. But when we as an individual first practice self-compassion, we love ourselves well, we will be able to advocate for our needs. That's where we stand up and we know we're worthy. We know we matter. Even if the other person is saying and doing things that tell us the opposite, we have to know that we matter. So we value ourselves enough to stand up and tell them that's not okay. I don't do that. I need this. And it's okay to park there for a while until you get that need met, because it's on the way to feeling safe, and we need that again. So I really want you to value yourself. Don't absorb, don't take in even these old phrases, these old thoughts that someone has said years ago. Could have been a parent, a coach, or just somebody that said horrible things. We don't have to hold on to those phrases anymore. They're not true. Right. So when we have these positive beliefs, when we can really meditate on all what's good and what's true and what's worthy about us, we're going to show up differently to our work, especially our relationships. We're just going to feel more whole because we believe that we are worthy, and we don't have to depend on anyone else to evaluate us and how worthy or not that we are. So I hope that part of this, you understood that, and I really want you to value yourselves, really take charge of your own emotional safety, advocate for that. And there's more, of course, to talk about this topic of how you build that as a couple, but I'm hoping that you picked up some of these things today from my sharing with you. So thank you for listening.
Great stuff. And I think about how applicable this is across all relationships. Like you're talking often about primary, but you alluded to other relationships too, and unsafe people versus unsafe behaviors. And I thought about this is really challenging stuff. And for a betrayed partner, when they get hit with discovery and finding out that their primary connection is not safe, it shreds often, I think, their ability to trust anyone else. And so dipping their toe back in and going, is this person safe? It's just really challenging to be able to take that risk. And I see it as challenging and risky on both sides of the equation. So it really does take a commitment from both people, whether it's the primary relationship or friends, to be willing to, if there's been a fracture, how do we, be willing to be vulnerable enough to say, this is what I need, and sometimes the other person is going to be able to say, I hear you, and, I can do that, or, or not do that, or whatever it is. And other times they're not going to be able to do that. So then it feels like, oh, great, I took this risk, and, you weren't able to show up for me even with that, so challenging, to be willing, the rewards, you said, I forgot what it was, but, to create, I loved it that you said to create, new, not go back. I hear sometimes where people are like, I want it how it was. And I was like, no, you don't. It was lies and things. I have a starfish up on my bookcase, and one of our clients, that came through seeking integrity, their relationship, I mean, like, they were headed for divorce, but he did his work. She got codependent aligned support, and they realized that they had a deep and abiding love for each other. That's a quote. And they, as they were navigating the divorce, and for their anniversary, he bought her a starfish necklace, because a starfish, if it loses a limb, it regenerates. It's not the same, but it regenerates. And they were kind enough to send me and Dr. Rob an ornament. And I look at that as a symbol of hope, and that it's not going to be perfect and we're going to naively go back to how it was. No addict can ever say, I'm never going to do that again. But they can say, for today, I'm doing what I need to do to take care of me so that I don't hurt you in the same way again. That's, we have today. And so there is hope, with all of this. The move away or defend, I thought that was, I thought, oh yeah, I mean, that probably is your personality and attachment style. It's like, okay, you're not safe, I'm going to move away, or I'm going to defend. And it's really challenging for addicts until they get some emotional maturity to be able to tolerate the emotional discomfort of the hurt, and not jump right to, well, you don't understand it. Look at all this I'm doing, and I'm trying, and, all of that type of thing, which just, it takes everything and, obliterates any progress, because, the defending isn't helpful, and, and distances, people again, rather than creating, healing. So, presence, not avoidance. So yeah, being able to be uncomfortable. Let's see, I had the excruciating gap. I have not heard that term before, but I love that, because I was like, it is. And when there is that gap between people, and I have seen and experienced, quite frankly, people that, I thought were safe, and then they betrayed me, and, whatever. And it's really challenging, to, like, it kind of rocks my gut of like, oh, is my, is my thinking off? Can I trust myself to gauge, people that are safe, and it's challenging, I have gone with I'd rather trust and be connected and get burned every now and then than be completely safe but completely disconnected. So I know I'm going to get burned now and then, but that's just the cost of being, a human in connection. So, and one other thing, and then we do have a question, but I was thinking too, when you started, there are people that I don't know quite how to say it, but like we'll always share everything, and don't have the boundary. And then there's people that never share, but
Mm,
like how, like, have you run into that where people are, don't have any kind of sense of how to learn? And maybe it is how they were brought up, and I don't know, but have you run into that where people automatically think everybody is safe and tell everything, and then get burned left and right, but they keep trying? Have you had that?
definitely. I think inherently we want to connect with people, and maybe we want to, their personality factors in this too, right? If we're more introverted or not, or withdrawn, and sometimes we don't have
Mm,
the confidence or the skills, so we remain quiet. But I think we really, truly, we want to connect with others, and we want to share with other people, and it hurts sometimes. Like I said, there's risk with that, so we want to revisit that and think about, what did I share? Like, that didn't go well, and if we
mm,
share too much, we feel bad, right? We feel, I shouldn't have said that. So we kind of beat ourselves up, but we don't want to go to the other end either and just, I'm not going to share with anybody ever again. But if someone betrays us, especially multiple people, right? If you've had some kind of childhood trauma from a parent, and they did something, and then like a dating, and then spouse, and friends and people have continued to harm us, of course we're going to withhold, and I think we should, to a degree. But what I put in the book was like calculating that, to slow that down and calculate, and ask yourself several questions. Is it safe to share with this person? What if? And we always want to anticipate how they might respond based on what we know about them. If I share this, what might they say? And is that going to hurt me? And what if they don't say anything? If they don't respond to me at all, that's going to be very hurtful. So I think, especially as a trauma survivor, we're going to calculate that, and be in our head, and kind of feel bad about if we don't share with people, because we want to connect. So that's part of that excruciating gap, is I want to stay protected, but I know I need to be connected. So there's a way to share certain things with certain people, and we don't want to go too deep too soon with someone we don't know, with our heart, with our most vulnerable information.
yeah, and I think it's also like we're all human, and I appreciated that you have a quiz on, are you a safe person?
Mhm.
And I thought that's great, and it would probably be beneficial to get somebody else's input, like if like it being vulnerable and saying, I'd like to have your feedback on this as well, because I want to take the quiz myself, but I'm also would like your input on you do how you maybe a few
Mhm.
people, like how you're
Yeah.
perceived by, because I know as an addict it's easy to lie to myself, and
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
minimize things, or yeah, I'm completely approachable, whatever.
Right.
I really appreciated too that you said at times sometimes it's okay to say, I don't know what to say right now, I hear you, but I
Mhm.
don't know what to say. And wow, staying present in that is way more helpful than than just avoiding, or
Mhm.
like you said, not saying anything.
Right.
It not only doesn't help, it distances you, but it not only doesn't help, it really, hurts again too. So,
Right. Yeah.
so
Yeah, I think with the person that is asking other people, how do you experience me? It is very vulnerable, and I've heard men ask that of their children. How do you experience me? And
oh,
you're going to get some
that's a
feedback.
great
If,
one.
yeah, if they
Yeah.
feel safe enough to share that, they might hesitate, depending on your relationship with them. But they might say, you know what, Dad, you seem pretty mad most of the time, or you're always so busy or stressed, or I don't feel like I can talk to you. So if we can work toward that, I don't think that's a one or a single conversation. If we can work toward all our most important relationships, and ask people, and own up to that, because that's part of it, is just owning up and being teachable, and saying like, hey, I probably let you down, and maybe give some specific ways. This is how I think I've hurt you, and I'm going to do different things now, and I just want some feedback. How have you experienced me, and do you have any ideas of what I could do to better help you, for us to strengthen our relationship?
That would be like so amazing. I can't imagine how transformative that would be for, a parent-child relationship. That
Mhm.
is a great suggestion. I did put your book in the chat, and I did also send it to my colleague who will get it posted on our website. And you are right, the Kindle version right now is 99 cents. So if you are listening to this on a recording, Emotional Sobriety, you can get it on Amazon. The Kindle version is 99 cents right now. It'll change, but and like I said, you'll have a link, it'll be on sexandrelationshiphealing.com. So okay, to a question. My husband is very dismissive, avoidant, and doesn't understand the harm. His dismissals, ignoring me, and when I'm safety seeking, and I become the baby on the video when there is no response at all from him. Can you reiterate the harm he does by his still face?
Yeah, I hear that sometimes. It's the responsiveness of our whole body, right? Our nonverbal cues are sending a message all the time. So it's sending it. So if there's like flat affect, we call it, right? There's no, it's stoic. We don't know how to read what they're thinking or feeling. So we're just picking up on, okay, it's nothing. Like, I don't know. So say something, right? So we might need to, of course, give some people some space if they're processing, and say, I need this. That we have different processing speeds sometimes as a couple. So we have to adjust and give them time. But I get it. That is hard when it feels dismissive and it's avoidant. It all communicates that you don't care about me, especially if you just shared something. I'm hurting in this way. I need this from you, and then we get nothing. That's very harmful, right? And so, yeah, I would say be very clear and specific. Make those needs known in a way that he can understand. And not as a withholding and an ultimatum, but like, until I could do this, I need this, right? This is very core. This is important for me. So I need some response. So I'll give you some time, but I need you to respond to me and meet this need to hear me and to validate me in his own way. It might not look the same way as we would want it to look, but if you see him genuinely trying and taking a step and he's at least somewhat engaged, that's very hopeful. But we also have to think about what's going on with him. Hopefully, if he's getting help from a therapist or somebody, he's able to see, okay, if shame can be paralyzing, and if we're already maybe stoic or quiet or withdrawn or just don't know what to say, and then we feel shame, think about shame as just like kind of closing our lips, like we're shutting down. And at the same time, as a partner, you need his presence. You need him to come towards you. You need him to validate and listen to your pain. He is feeling his own things and he's going the other way. And so those are very delicate moments. And I don't think there's an easy fix for that other than to look at both of you, of what you're feeling and thinking. If you're not in couples therapy already and individual therapists are saying that could be a good idea soon, I would say those are the things that you want to bring up. I need something from him in these moments. And it might not be what I really want, but if he can take one step toward me and show me that he's present and define what that looks like. So tell him, I need you to sit down. I need you to look at me. It would help if you held my hand, if you're okay with touch at this point. Those specific things that you need for reassurance might be alternatives to what he's able to do right now in his recovery.
So, and I hear this kind of frequently. So partners will say, okay, we're taking a little time so he can, gather himself or do whatever. And then he never comes back to the table to, so how do you, how does a partner approach that, deal with that? I mean, any suggestions for if there's that kind of a gap?
Right. I don't think this should be days. It does harm when sometimes it's days for people before they'll come back. Even hours can do harm, but sometimes people need a few hours if they're actively processing. So if you as a betrayed partner can assert to them, like, hey, I'll give you the space. I need to know that you'll come back, and I need you to initiate the coming back. Right. If you have to chase him and say, okay, it's 3 hours now or 30 minutes, that feels like you're trying to get his love, get his attention, when what does the healing for you is that he is initiating that, he's coming towards you. So if you can make that request that he comes to you, and have a time frame that you guys can agree on. So you both know. And then also, I don't know if you've used the Fanos, that check-in framework, but FANOS, if you look that up, that gives him some framework. It helps a lot of couples get started for check-ins. So it stands for feelings, affirmations, needs, ownership, and sobriety. And I like when both partners share the Fanos. And you might not share sobriety as a betrayed partner, but I use the S as struggle. What are you struggling with that you can share with the other person? So thank you for putting that in the chat, Chami. So yeah, that check-in gives him a framework. It helps him prepare for that. I tell some guys in my groups to, in the morning, do a check-in with yourself, do a Fanos with yourself, just to kind of get ready, because some guys feel on the spot and they're like, I don't know what to say, I have nothing, and we're going to check in the evening. And so I have them stay aware of that throughout the day, kind of journal a little bit of that, stay aware of your feelings, be aware of what you need to take ownership for. Everyone needs to take ownership of something, probably every day in our relationship, of what we've said and maybe shouldn't have said. So those types of things can help him prepare. So when he comes back to you in that time frame you agreed on and discussed, would be good and healing for you. And then maybe there's a cutoff that would be harmful. Like, if you wait a whole day, that's going to hurt me in this way, right? So let's come up with something that works.
Yeah, well, and hopefully both partners have the vision for building a new trustworthy relationship, where there's honesty and connection. So, I mean, if that is the goal, then then what are the steps that we can get there? And I've had one of the stories, this is from a couple of years ago, but I really loved it, was one of the partners said, this is my vision, and I know that you're not able to meet that need now, but I hold this vision, while you do the work, so that we can get there. And I thought, wow, I mean, because like, what a non-shaming way of sharing. This is what I need. I know you cannot deliver this yet, but I'm going to hold the space for us, to have that. So and it takes a lot. I mean, I get it takes a lot, and a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, the first thing is, and with using he and she, is he has got to stop the problematic behavior, then address the underlying issues. And you talked about the why, and I often, like, everybody wants to know the why. And you can, I've been in recovery for decades. I had a why clarify 5 years ago. Well, you know what? I was in recovery this whole time. And so it's interesting. I know lots of people who know the why and still keep acting out. So the how do we move forward? Here's where we are right now. And we may be on that, like you talked about, validation is the bridge. Like, we're on the other sides of the river, so how do we, create that bridge so that we can move together and have a future together. So
You're
a
right.
joyous one,
Yeah.
So.
And you're right about both partners need to be on the same page, because we can't apply all these things to every situation. Even the Fanos, I've modified that for many couples for what they need and what works, and the timing or the frequency. Some couples will do that every day for a while, and they do it every other day and move up to once a week. But the things that I see that are universal is when he initiates, the person who betrayed initiates and has prepared some things for this check-in. It's very important. But they need to be in the same place as far as where they want to go, even if they don't know that next step. If they both want to work on the relationship, then maybe they can do these check-ins. I don't think the check-ins work. Every case is different, but it might not work early on for some people. They might need that day one and need it every day, and it might work really well for them.
Well, and like you said, there's different versions, or as with everything, take what you need and leave the rest. I've heard, I forget. I was like, in this day of technology, you could have a calendar reminder that in 10 minutes you're going to do this, and then the reminder. So there isn't an excuse like, I just forgot. It's that feels like avoidance, and then that's hurtful to your partner and to your relationship. So,
Okay.
and it should not be that, the partner has to go, well, it's 7 p.m. or, this, like, it shouldn't have to be, it should be that we are doing this because we value our relationship and we want to move forward. So
Right.
hopefully, and if there's kids around, schedule it for a time when there isn't, I think sometimes morning, because then it's like, okay, here's where my check-in is. I have a stressful day at work and whatever. But there's so many different ways to use the tools. So figuring out what works for the two of you.
Mhm.
That's
Right.
how we move forward. So.
Right.
Okay, we don't have any more questions. So, and we're almost out of time. So thank you. I will look forward to seeing you the first week of November. Again, Emotional Sobriety. It's on Amazon. The links are in the chat. So if you were joining us live, I hope you captured that. 99 cents. What a great value. And I love the cover, by the way, too. That's a beautiful
Thank you.
cover. So yeah, so very cool.
Great.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, sorry, the title is Emotional Safety. I think you said
Oh,
sobriety,
I'm
but
so sorry.
just
Yeah, I'm so
yeah,
sorry. I
but
had it
yeah,
off.
it's
Yeah, emotional safety, honoring yourself while creating trust and presence
yeah.
to experience meaningful relationships. So yes, but it's a beautiful cover. So
Oh,
yeah.
thank you.
So the link is
All right.
correct in the chat. Emotional
All right.
safety. So thank you.
All right.
Thanks for clarifying
Great.
too. All right.
Yeah.
Bye everybody. Thanks for joining.
Yes. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.